Republicans and Democrats are still far apart when it comes to a new coronavirus relief bill, even with several vaccines in the works. A new Wall Street Journal op-ed, a speedy recovery depends on more aid. Will Trump deliver? This op-ed warns that aid is needed for states, the unemployed, and businesses large and small, and it is needed right now. Let's bring in Arkansas Congressman and House Financial Services member French Hill. Congressman, thank you for being here.
Good morning, Cheryl.
And congratulations on your recent reelection.
Glad to be reelected to serve the people of Arkansas for another 2-year term and look forward to that work.
Well, we thank you for the service that we're going to need from you very, very soon, because obviously the big question for everyone is this COVID-19 relief package. Do you think we're going to get any aid in the next month to 2 months before the inauguration?
Well, Cheryl, we need to have more COVID-19 aid in the form of extending the Paycheck Protection Program, that $138 billion that we have to help our small businesses, our hoteliers. Our governors want to be able to spend that CARES Act money that they got with more flexibility, and it stops at 12/31. So we need that changed here before the end of the year. And finally, we need to help our families that are on unemployment have certainty about the level of unemployment compensation that they're eligible for. So those three things, I believe, need to be done during this lame duck session of Congress, before Congress adjourns and long before the inauguration.
So not to split hairs with you, but do you think we're going to get some kind of a la carte movement out of Washington, or do you think that we could possibly see an all-encompassing bill? Obviously, the balance of power is still in the balance because we're waiting on the Georgia story. How do you foresee this actually playing out specifically?
Well, I do think there's not appetite to attach COVID-19 relief to the December 11th deadline Congress has for 2021 funding. So I think we're going to have to pass a separate COVID-19 bill. As you know, we're far apart between Speaker Pelosi still demanding $2.5 trillion and Senate Republicans in the $600 billion range. That's why in the House we've tried to move 40 times the extension of the Paycheck Protection Program, as you say, on an a la carte basis. And the master of the cafeteria there in the House, Speaker Pelosi, has shut that down. So I still think we need to put together a common sense set of package and get it passed before the end of the year.
No, I think many small business owners and Americans that are sitting home without jobs right now would agree that we can't wait until January 20th. It's just not an option.
Agreed.
And I want to let's take you forward to January. Joe Biden, it looks like he's tapping former Federal Reserve Janet Yellen as the Treasury Secretary. She'd be the first woman to hold this position, which obviously I think is amazing. But what kind of impact do you think that she is going to have as Treasury Secretary?
Well, I worked with Chair Yellen my first 2 years in Congress when she was chair of the Federal Reserve Board. She's been on the Council of Economic Advisors. She's been the president of the San Francisco Federal Reserve Bank. So she comes to this position with a lot of experience and qualifications. But she's going to confront a fiscal challenge as we come out of this pandemic. How do we pay back the debt that we've incurred in fighting COVID-19? And how do we get the economy growing again? And she'll have to navigate that as Treasury Secretary to make sure that we don't have large tax increases or large regulatory impediments to that economic recovery.
Yeah, I want to bring in my colleague from the Wall Street Journal, James Freeman, to kind of chime in on this discussion. You've been following this as well, James. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Cheryl. Congressman, wanted to ask more about Janet Yellen in terms of obviously a lot of pressure from the progressive left to use the Fed and Treasury in a more activist way to kind of replace private financial products and services. Now, some of these ideas, maybe they're just sort of AOC discussion, but I'm just wondering how you see potential Secretary Yellen here resisting those kind of efforts.
Well, as former chair of the Federal Reserve, she knows the often attempts by Congress and by the public to either politicize the Fed, make the Fed go way beyond its mandates of full employment and fighting inflation. She's going to have that in spades, James. There are those on the left who want the Fed to lend money directly to state and local governments, something that I oppose. They have an idea that the Fed could become the climate police person of the world by regulating climate through how it regulates the financial institutions of this country. So she's going to have a full plate, both on the fiscal side of her work as well as the regulatory side. And part of that is to, as Treasury Secretary, resist the politicization of the Fed and not allow that to be a policy of the Biden administration.
And that's a dance that I think that she carefully handled pretty well when she was at the Fed. I want to ask you about Georgia. You know, obviously we're looking to these two big Senate races in January, but the GOP gained several seats in the House this past election. Do you think Republicans are going to continue to have momentum and maybe flip the House in 2022?
Well, Cheryl, in my view, it was a good night in the House. We picked up seats. Nancy Pelosi's left-leaning progressive agenda did not meet well with voters. And in fact, all those votes she took those centrist Democrats and made them take cost them their seats. So I hope that with her more narrow majority and us winning the Senate, maintaining control of the Senate, that we'll be in a position in the House and Senate to work with an incoming administration on a much more pro-growth economic agenda, a leadership agenda around the world, and not succumb to the siren song of AOC and the left.
And before I let you go, I want to pick up on that, because within Congress, your AOC-type congresswomen, I'll put Ilhan Omar in that as well, they are demanding a very, very progressive agenda from Joe Biden. Your reaction?
Well, in my view, the voters rejected that, and that's why I think we can take the House back in 2022 with hard work and good candidates like we had this year, record-setting good candidates on the Republican side. America is a center-right country. It's not a center-left country. It's not a far-left progressive country. And with leadership by Republicans in the House and Senate, I think we can keep Joe Biden on the right track towards that center governance. I don't believe that you'll see him successfully push those AOC or Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders type policies. He may talk about them, but getting those enacted is going to be very challenging.
Yeah, well, we can only hope. Congressman French Hill. Congressman, thank you very much. Congratulations again.
Thanks, Cheryl.